Today we're going to talk about my favorite topic, productivity. Favorite as in I always love finding new strategies to increase my productivity, and it's a good feeling when you know that you've been productive and you've made really good use of your time. I know a lot of us struggle with that. We struggle with clearing our to-do lists or finishing the work that we have to get done, and we often feel like we're not using our time wisely, we're not producing the results we're after, or we're just simply not being productive enough. Hi guys, this is Stella Bella. Hi guys, welcome back to the HUBient Talent channel. This is Stella Bella. Today we're going to talk about my favorite topic, productivity. Favorite as in I always love finding new strategies to increase my productivity, and it's a good feeling when you know that you've been productive and you've made really good use of your time. I know a lot of us struggle with that. We struggle with clearing our to-do lists or finishing the work that we have to get done. And we often feel like we're not using our time wisely, we're not producing the results we're after, or we're just simply not being productive enough. But often we don't know why that is, or we feel like we've been working ourselves to the bone and still nothing gets finished. So today I'm going to talk about 5 things that might be happening or that you might be doing that's causing you to have decreased productivity without you even realizing. So some of these might be harsh truths, some of these might be things that you already know you're doing but you just don't want to admit it, or you find it difficult to overcome that obstacle. Either way, we're going to talk about it and hopefully bring some of those issues to light at least so that you can recognize and address it. Number 1, you are a people pleaser. So you say yes to everything, or you have trouble saying no when people ask you for favors, when people say they can't get through their work, so can you take over? When your friends ask you to go out and you feel bad about saying no, even though you have a lot of things on your plate and a lot of things due. It is hard to overcome because you might have spent your whole life trying to make people happy, or you feel like you're letting people down if you say no. But remember that every yes you say to someone or something is a no that you're saying to something or someone else. If you already have a lot on your plate and you're saying yes to someone else, the person you're saying no to is actually yourself. You're saying no to your mental health. You're saying no to that night off you were hoping for. Whatever it is that you're saying yes to that you don't want to, you are saying no to something else. And it's not even just things that we don't want to do. Any yes you say to something, there is an opposite side to it. There's always a side that you're saying no to. It's just that when we say yes to things, we should be saying it because we really truly want to do it ourselves. And if we don't, then we have to weigh up our pros and cons. We have to weigh up how much time we actually have and whether or not we can handle it. Because trust me, the people who are asking you for those favors is them saying yes to themselves. So if they can do that, why can't you, right? Or we might have a really bad case of FOMO, that if somebody invites us to go somewhere, even though we really shouldn't because we have something due tomorrow that we really want to do, we say yes to that because we're worried about what we might miss out on. Learn to assess your workload wisely. It's important to be realistic when you actually assess your situation. Nobody else knows your assessment, only you. So there's no point lying to yourself. Have a look at everything that you need to do. Learn to say no. And you can say no respectfully to other people who ask you for favors. Just give them an honest answer. Just say, unfortunately, I've got too much on my plate right now. I don't think I'll be able to handle this as well. It doesn't mean you're incompetent. In fact, most people appreciate the honesty. They appreciate that you're not going to take on something only to disappoint them later on when you can't deliver. So stop being a people pleaser, stop taking on more than you can handle, and be realistic about what you're actually able to achieve. Number 2, you're actually addicted to something that causes you to procrastinate or something that distracts you from the important things. I'm not talking about addiction in the traditional sense. I'm talking about more addiction to things like social media, which is a big one in this day and age. Addiction to gaming, online shopping, something that takes your mind and time away from the things that are truly important. And it happens all of the time because it's an addiction. You can't control it. It just pops into your head and immediately it takes away from any sort of focus or concentration you have on the things that matter or the things that you're working on. Fortunately, this is a bad habit that you can recognize easily. As long as you're truthful to yourself, you can recognize it easily and start making corrections in place. When you're addicted to anything, it is hard to break that addiction. But if you actually want to get through that to-do list and do the things that matter to you, you need to recognize it and stop yourself from doing it. So if it's social media that you're addicted to, or set limits for yourself as to how often you can go on social media every day. And in fact, social media is one of the worst things because you can literally slip into a black hole of time where you think you're on there for 5 minutes, but it ends up being 3 hours. Really important to set yourself limits on that. Even on your phone, set reminders, alarms for you to jump off social media. Or if you're on there for hours at a time, cut down on the hours slowly. Go from 3 hours to 2, from 2 hours to 1. Have times of social media detox where you completely cut it out for maybe a day or two, even a week if you can. Now, if you do need it for work purposes, then use the tools that you need to use. For example, if you need to communicate to people on Facebook, only open Messenger and not Facebook itself, so you don't get distracted by the feed or updates of what your friends are doing. And even feel free to let people know you're on a social media detox so you don't feel bad, or they know not to contact you on social media if it's something important. And even tell a friend or a family member to help you, so it makes you accountable. If they see you trying to shop online or game during the times that you're not allowing yourself to, they need to stop you, and so on. But either way, you need to recognize what that addiction is that's distracting you from doing the important work. Get some self-control, some self-discipline, and put some limits in place. Number 3, paralysis by analysis. So this happens when we have so much to do on our plates, or we put so much on our to-do list that we don't know where to start, or we don't know what's more important, and we start overthinking, we start trying to weigh the pros and cons of each one, and then soon it becomes all too overwhelming, and then we end up doing nothing because it's just all too hard. Happens very often with people who are the most productive, the ones who care about what they do the most, but they generally do the least. You ever see those people who they don't seem like the nicest or the smartest of people, but they seem to be so successful, or they get so much done, or they at least achieve what they seem to set out to achieve. Generally because they don't have much on their to-do list and they don't really care as much as you do, but they just go and do it. The most important thing about productivity and actually getting things done is by doing it, right? By taking action. But those of us who care so much and we analyze so much, we end up getting paralyzed and we get nothing done. And it doesn't matter how great of an idea you have, how neat of a to-do list you've got. If you don't actually take action, your productivity just goes down the drain. So it is important to not get overwhelmed by your to-do list. Sometimes it's better to just put everything into a high priority, medium priority, and low priority list, and then just work your way down the high priority list. Or even if it's too hard for you to put everything into priorities, then just work your way from top to bottom. If something seems too big, too hard, then just go on to the next one. You have so many things on your to-do list that sometimes maybe it just takes a little bit of getting into the swing of things. Start with something small. Start with something that's not even important. Get the blood flowing, get the brain working for you to actually figure out what's important in that list. Maybe after you do a couple of the non-important things, you suddenly have a surge of energy and you know exactly which one to do next. But the most important thing is just action, to just start doing it first rather than stop yourself because you're analyzing too much and you end up doing nothing. Now, this brings me to number 4, which is the 80-20 rule, which I have spoken about before. The 80-20 rule, or the Pareto's law, basically says that 80% of our efforts produces 20% of the results, and 20% of our efforts can produce 80% of the results. Meaning sometimes we spend 80% of the time or effort working on something that only produces 20% of the results we're after. Whereas if we were working on the correct 20% of the work, it will actually produce 80% of the results. So when we are getting overwhelmed by our to-do list and we've got paralysis by analysis, it's important to actually look at that list as a whole and ask ourselves how many things on our to-do list should be done, is worth our time, is worth doing. Maybe what we're doing right now is just busy work that makes us look busy. A book I recommended a little while ago was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he talks a lot about this sort of concept of you don't actually need a 40-hour work week like most of us do in our full-time job, because the more time that we have, the more time we tend to waste. If we're given 10 hours to do an assignment, we'll use up those 10 hours. And if we get an extension for another 5 hours, we'll still use up those 5 hours to get that same assignment done. Whatever we need to do in order to do that assignment, to achieve those goals, to do the things that we want to do, may not take as long as we allow ourselves. It's all about working on the right things. So identify your goals, think about all the steps that it takes to reach those goals, the actual real important steps to get there, not just the little tiny tasks in between that you could take or leave, but the actual things that you need to do that makes a difference, and work on those instead. That will increase your productivity so much and allow you to achieve your goals so much faster. Number 5, last but not least, knowing what you are producing with your productivity. Some of us have goals that are really hard to measure. For example, example, I want to live a long, happy, healthy life, or I want to be successful. I want to have a really successful business. I want to be rich. I want to start my own family. These are all things that are very vague. And if you have a vague goal, it's very hard to know what you need to do in order to be productive so that you can produce that final outcome. What's important is to break down those goals so that each of the steps to take you to that goal is clear and measurable. That way you know exactly what you need to do. For example, if you want to have a successful business, work out what your idea of success is. What would your first year of sales look like? 5 years, 10 years? How many customers will you have in the first week? Third week, 1 month, 6 months, 10 months, 12 months. Have these little steps that leads up to the final goal so that you can see each and every single one of your little tiny goals broken down. Then you can work out what you need to do to take you to each of these steps. And when you're able to achieve these little steps along the way to reach your final goal, you'll feel so much more productive and you'll be able to better assess your productivity, your performance, whether or not you need to change things up or improve on your strategies to get there. And in the very least, you're not going to feel like you're not achieving anything because you've actually got little measurable wins along the way. It's great to have big dreams, big goals, but just make sure you're able to measure them, break them down. Not only are you able to see clearly the path to take you there, you'll feel and be more productive along the way when you're able to achieve all those little steps. 5 things that you might be doing to sabotage your productivity. If you're doing any one of those, it's fine. We're all probably doing it in one way or another. I know I am. All 5 at some point in my life, in my career, I have done them before. But it's all about recognizing it before it consumes you, before it makes you feel down about yourself, about your productivity. And it's never too late to make changes. Even if you feel like you're so overwhelmed now and you just cannot get above your workload and your to-do list, step back, take out the things that you don't actually need to do, be honest with yourself, show a little bit of discipline, and work on it slowly. There's no such thing as perfection. There's only progress. And even if you are able to do a few more things on your to-do list after today's video that you couldn't do before, that's still progress and it's better than nothing. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions, any comments or suggestions, if you've tried any of the tactics that I mentioned today and you'd like to share your experience, please drop a comment down below. We would love to hear from you. Make sure to click like, subscribe, follow on our social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you, love to see you, and make sure to follow me on my social media as well. I'm on stellabella.au and I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Leave me a message, ask me a question, let me know what you'd like to hear from me next. Until then, have a wonderful week and I'll catch you next time. Bye.